You guys have no idea how long I've been trying to film this intro because my dog is snoring really loudly. I hope it's not catching because as you guys can tell, I'm using a new mic. I am trying things out here. I also do not have a receiver on this camera, so I'm actually recording this on a different device. So I'm hoping this will work out. The editing is gonna be a pain in the ass, but I'm doing things for you guys. So hopefully it's catching. If it's not, I still have the audio from the camera, so it's fine. We're good. Anyway, hello, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to a new video. I am doing my February wrap up today and I'm really excited. I have so many good books to talk about. I also got my first 5-star read of this year. January was a very difficult month for me, so being able to read 13 books this month was a godsend. I also read a lot of the books from my February TBR. So I had 6 books on that TBR. I read 5. I didn't read the last one because I just felt like I wasn't reading it in the right time. I have my trustworthy reading journal with me because I cannot trust my own brain to talk about the books that I read in the beginning of this month. So hopefully this will help. I read a lot of romance books this month. It's a month of love, so maybe that's why, but I was in the mood to read a romance. I was also coming back from like a really big life slump, so I was in the mood to pick up just easy, nice romance reads. And the first book I picked up is the Rom-commers by Catherine Center. This was in my February TBR, so that's why I picked it up. This one is about Emma. I'm pretty sure it's her name. Yep. Emma is a screenwriter. She wants to make it big, but she is unable to do so because she has to care for her ailing father. And she has always been obsessed and in love with Charlie Yates, a very big screenwriter. One day she ends up getting the opportunity to work with him and she takes it. She flies to LA and she realizes that Charlie is an asshole. I rated this book 3.5 stars. I did love Emma. Emma was my favorite in this book. She was the perfect FMC. She was quirky and she was funny, but she has lots of empathy and she loves her family so much. It's impossible to hate on this character. But however, I felt like Charlie was lacking in this book. Charlie didn't really have a lot going on with him. He was very two-dimensional. I felt like the author didn't really get into his character too much. He felt like a side piece to me. I enjoyed Emma's story as well as her relationships with her family, especially her dad and her sister, so much more than the romance itself. I did not love the romance of this book, but I love the family aspects of this book, which is why I rated it 3.5. The ending part made me cry a little bit. And then I read 3 books in a reading vlog. First book I read is Lights Out by Navessa Ellen, and this is a TikTok sensation, as you guys can tell. It is also a dark romance, and it's about Allie, who is a trauma surgeon working in the ER, and she has this obsession of watching thirst trap TikToks of masked men. And one of the people that she watches is Josh. And Josh one day realizes that Allie has an obsession with him and he starts stalking her. This was very unhinged. And for some reason, I found it entertaining because it had really comedic elements, but also the romance was very entertaining. The way Josh and Ellie got together, the way they actually started dating was really comedic and fun. But the moment they started dating, I lost interest because I felt like the mystery plot in this book was not interesting, and also was quite cringy at times, so I was a little bit thrown off by some of the romance scenes. However, I did like Josh's inner thoughts, the things that he thinks about when he thinks about Allie, or like his actions, because he's honestly just a normal person. He's not actually a stalker and he doesn't like stalking girls, but the romance was not interesting by the end of it, and the mystery plot was very mid. I rated this 3.5 stars still because I had a lot of fun reading this and I flew through the book. I read my first fantasy of this month and I haven't been in the mood to read a fantasy. I flew through the book. I thought the world building was not difficult. By the way, I'm talking about Lightlark by Alex Astor. This one is about an island called Lightlark that appears every 1,000 years or something, and it hosts a deadly game where 6 rulers of each realm will come and compete. One has to die and the winner will take all of the power. Just have to preface this by saying that whatever I just said was the plot that was written at the back of the book. I feel like the storyline and everything that happened in this book was definitely not what I just said. It was a lot different. It doesn't seem as suspenseful as what I just explained. I also feel like the world building and like the magic lacked so much. I couldn't really understand the world I was in, so half the time I was very confused. I wasn't into the book because the fantasy world was so confusing to understand. I didn't care about Isla as a character. She was very boring. I loved Grim. He was the iconic character of this book. I really liked the plot twist by the end of this book, but honestly, those two are the only things I liked. At first, I rated this a 3 stars. If you guys watch the reading vlog, you'll know that I rated 3 stars, but then I sat on this book for a long time and I realized that this book didn't really give me anything. Even though the ending was interesting and it was a plot twist and it was a cliffhanger, I suddenly realized I don't want to pick up the rest of the book. So I decided to rate this 2 stars, and I'm not going to continue the series. I didn't enjoy the writing as much, and I also don't know what this love triangle is all about. There's a love triangle, by the way. There's another character called Oro, and I didn't even like Oro. And I love love triangles in books if I like both of the male characters, and that is an interesting love triangle, but this one was very boring, not interesting to me. World was confusing, so 2 stars, not continuing the series. That's about it. The last book I read in that video is Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage. This is the second book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. First book is Done and Dusted, and this one is about Wes and Ada. Wes is a second writer sibling, and Ada is an interior designer, and she's hired by Wes to go to Rebel Blue Ranch to build Wes's guest ranch house. They meet, they fall in love, all of those things. This was very light and very sweet and very funny. This was what I really needed after reading Lightlark. So honestly, maybe it was the timing of me reading this book, but I had so much fun reading it and I really enjoyed the reading experience. However, I did not like that there wasn't a lot of depth with Wes and Ada both individually as characters. They both went through some things. Wes has depression and struggles with it, while Ada went through a very bad divorce with her ex-husband. But those two topics were not explained any further, was not dived into any further. So I felt like I couldn't connect to both characters. So this was a 3.5 star read as well. This is where we talk about my 5-star read, but also a very controversial book to rate, I feel, because after I read this book, I went on TikTok and I realized that there were a lot of people who didn't really like this book. But this is my opinion, and this is what I felt when I read this book. I'm talking about Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. I did rate this 5 stars. I enjoyed this so much. This is Ali Hazelwood's new release, and it's a sports romance between an Olympic diver and a swimmer. Sorry, Olympic swimmer and a diver. They both are D1 college athletes in Stanford. Scarlett is our FMC, and she struggles with PTSD because something happened to her when she was doing a competition. She got into a bad injury. And then Lucas is our MMC. Lucas and Scarlett know each other in school. They know each other's presence, but they never really interacted until one day something happens and they end up realizing each other's secrets, and then they get into an arrangement. As you guys can tell from my tabs, I love this book. I really liked watching Scarlett's growth from her struggling with PTSD, her going to her therapy sessions, and also finding solace and also understanding with Lucas and their relationship. I think that a lot of people didn't like this book because they either felt like it was too spicy or not spicy at all. The beginning of the book, there is a little explanation, I would say, where Ali Hazelwood talks about how this book is spicy and quote-unquote kinky. Yes, there is some sort of BDSM material in this book, but this is where my argument sets in. So a lot of people think it's really spicy for an Ali Hazelwood book. She did say it was spicy, so I don't know, but I would have dived into it knowing it was spicy. And I do love a spicy book, so I don't really care too much about it. And then there are some people who said it's not spicy at all. Those who thought that it would be kinky. I think that because this book was about D1 college athletes who were 21 years old and only diving into this topic for the first time, it makes sense for this book to not be as kinky as it's supposed to be because they're new to it and they're just starting out. They don't really know what they're doing as well. And I felt like the amount of spice was very balanced with the amount of character development you get from both characters, so I thought it was great. Second of all, a lot of complaints with people feeling like the beginning of the book was very boring and that Penelope, a character that plays a huge role in this book, appears too much in the book. But like, Penelope does play a big role, so her appearing in the book makes a lot of sense. Yes, she is annoying, and yes, her redemption arc was not the best, but she played a huge role in getting Lucas and Scarlett together, and I like that there was her to add conflict to their relationship so that they would realize that they're actually meant to be together. I don't know about you guys, but when I was reading Deep End, Penelope's character didn't really irk me as much. I think because I was just too focused on Scarlett and Lucas's relationship and their romance that I didn't really care too much about Penelope. I just loved that Scarlett and Lucas are together and their romance was really cute, and Lucas was so obsessed with her, and I just really like seeing such an obsessive MMC who's so in love. I loved Deep End, as you guys can tell. There were a lot of emotional elements in this book that made the reading experience so enjoyable, and I also love the little cameo you see of the Love Hypothesis characters in this book. Really like that. I'm one of those rare people who enjoyed Deep End a lot, and I don't want to hear anyone talking bad about this book. I've watched a lot of TikToks on it. I understand you guys, but my opinion still stands that I love this book and that it's probably my favorite Ali Hazelwood book. You guys can watch my reading vlog because I did go in depth with this book in that reading vlog. And then I read a lot of Kindle books. I read Spiral by Bella Cabra on my Kindle, and this was my worst read, you guys. This was 1 star. I think when I was making that reading vlog, I rated it 2 stars, but I realized that there's no part of this book that I enjoyed, so it's a 1-star read. I don't even remember what this book is about. I don't even remember my feelings about this book. I don't even remember what the characters went through. The FMC is a ballerina. The MMC is a hockey player. They're fake dating. Why are they fake dating? Fake dating for some reason. I forgot the exact reason. The fake dating trope is very difficult to do well because you gotta make sure that the characters are actually faking the dating. In Spiral, there wasn't any faking involved. I felt like they got into the relationship thinking it's fake dating when they're actually just getting to know each other. It didn't feel like they hated each other so they had to fake date. It didn't feel like there was a reason for them to fake date. I also did not like that there was not a lot of buildup of their relationship. I felt like they went from a 0 to 100 very quickly. There wasn't a lot of explanation onto both characters' pasts and their traumas and what they're dealing with. So I did not have an enjoyable time reading this. I felt like I should have DNF'd it, actually. I apologize, but I really did not like this book. Okay, I read another Kindle book. I read Unloved by Peyton Kareen. Oh, wait, before we talk about Unloved, let's talk about Scythe and Sparrow by Bryn Weaver, the book I DNF. It was the same with Spiral, where there was no chemistry and they started liking each other for no reason. No slow burn. This time around, I learned my lesson and I DNF'd the book. That's all I have to say about Scythe and Sparrow. Let's talk about Unloved by Peyton Kareen, my second highest rated book of this month. I rated it 4.5. I'm so happy about this book. I love this book. With Unloved, you're following Freddie, who is a quote-unquote womanizer. He's a playboy. He sleeps with girls. He's a very lonely soul, and so he seeks pleasure from other people. And then our FMC, whose name I actually forgot. Our FMC, who in the start of this book is in a very toxic on and off relationship with a guy who doesn't treat her well, who gaslights her, who manipulates her. She works as like a tutor in school. Freddie is struggling with one of his classes and he needs to pass that class in order to graduate. And so she ends up tutoring him and they become friends. This is a friends to lovers book. They become friends. They start hanging out together. They realize that they're actually really compatible, and then they fall in love. This book was so good with the friends to lovers trope. I felt like there was a really good build-up of them being friends first and then starting to have feelings for each other after they became friends, and then there was a slow burn of them going from friends to dating. I loved this relationship. Freddie was so sensitive as an MMC, and even though it seems like he's a playboy in the beginning of the book, he is so wronged. His soul is so emotional and he loves so deeply, and he's so lonely. He's such a lonely character. He struggles a lot with his loneliness, and in comes the FMC, who also struggles with loneliness, which is why she has always stuck with this toxic boyfriend of hers. Obviously, she breaks it off with him and she starts realizing that she is able to heal with Freddie together. I usually do not like when characters get together and they heal each other's traumas together instead of separately, individually. But I felt like this book did a really good job with them being together and then healing each other and healing together. Overall, loved Unloved. I'm rating it 4.5. I love the writing of this book. I'm excited to read the other books of this series because we get snippets of who we're gonna see next, which I'm really excited. I really like this book. I highly recommend it if you guys want to find a hockey romance that is more on like the emotional side of romance. This is such a good book. I read Beg, Borrow, or Steal next by Sarah Adams. This is the third book in the When in Rome not trilogy series, because I know there's going to be another book after this book. In Beg, Borrow, or Steal, you are following Emily Walker, who is the eldest sister of the Walker siblings. The brother is Noah, who is the character of the first book. Annie, the little sister, is the character of the second book, and now we're following Emily. She is working as a teacher in this small town, and she has a longtime feud with a guy called Jackson. Jackson used to work in that town, but he left recently because he was getting engaged. However, his engagement failed, and so he comes back to work again as a teacher in that town. He ends up being colleagues with Emily. He also buys a house next to Emily's, and so they end up being neighbors as well. They both don't like each other's guts. However, Emily has a secret. Emily secretly wants to be a romance writer. Jackson knows that's a secret. Jackson is a mystery author. He has published a few books. One day, something happens where Emily ends up sending a transcript to her principal, and she asks Jackson to help delete that email. They work together and they realize that they're actually so similar to each other that they actually understand each other very well, and they start falling in love. I really like this book. I thought it was really sweet. I love the relationship Emily and Jackson had. Even though they didn't like each other and they were constantly fighting and getting on each other's nerves, they realized that the other person understands them the best, and they're the most genuine and the most real with the other person. They never hide who they are, because Jackson has a tendency to people please. Well, Emily doesn't really talk about her feelings because she feels like she needs to prioritize her siblings' feelings. It's a very older sister mentality, to which I have an older sister who also acts the same way. So honestly, this was very deja vu to me. I love the relationship and I love getting to know both Jackson and Emily. I thought they were meant to be. It was so sweet. I couldn't really connect to them as characters, but I could understand where they're coming from and I understand what they're dealing with. So I really liked overall how this happened and the storyline. Loved the Walker siblings and their interactions. It was all just very wholesome. I love the small town and the world. It was done super well. I'm excited to read the fourth book, which is going to be following Madison, the second oldest sister of the Walker sibling. So yeah, that is Beg, Borrow, or Steal. There's going to be another reading vlog that's going to be uploaded after this video, actually, where I read these next three books. The first one is The Throne of Broken Gods by Amber V. Nicole. This is the second book following the Book of Azrael, the Gods and Monsters series. The first book, you're following Diana, who is in servitude to a monster called Caden, and Caden asks Diana to find this Book of Azrael, which is said to be with Sam Keel, who is the world ender, the one who destroyed but also saved the world. He is in hiding. He doesn't like what he did and he has PTSD, and he is under the pseudonym Liam because he doesn't like his term. Diana basically finds Sam Keel, tries to find the Book of Azrael, but then is unable to find it and realizes that they're going to have to work together to find this book. They end up having an enemies to lovers relationship. I personally did not enjoy the first book, but this was actually really, really good. I felt like in this book, you really get lots of world building. You start to understand the world better and you start realizing where things are coming from. Things start to connect. You understand the magic, you understand what they are, how they became to be in this world, and it's so intricate, super complex. Everything starts to make sense, and that's when the fun actually began. But I rated this 4 stars. It's not my favorite book. I didn't love this as much because I honestly couldn't care less about the romance, and I don't really understand why. I really like when they're enemies, but as soon as they get together, I start losing interest in their relationship. It was also very cringy, their relationship. I just gotta be honest. I, however, had such a good time reading this because there were so many plot twists. There were so many things mentioned in the first book that I felt like was so useless, but then realized that it plays a huge role in this book, and whatever was revealed, I loved it. I am so excited to pick up the third book. I feel like things are going to start really picking up from that book, and I'm just excited to see what's going to happen because it ended in a cliffhanger. And I'm so scared of what I'm going to read in the third book, but I'm excited. I think this series can go a long way because I heard it's going to be a 7-book series. That's crazy. So that is The Throne of Broken Gods. I highly recommend this fantasy romance series. I then read a classic because my goal is to read a classic a month, and I read White Nights by Fyodor Dostoevsky. It's a very short classic. It's less than 100 pages. It's only 86 pages, and you're basically following a book about unrequited love. The main protagonist falls in love with a woman in 4 nights, but that woman is engaged to another man. It's a very short and sweet book. It delves into unrequited love and its sorrows, but also its beauty. It was beautiful. I actually flew through the book. It was really easy to read as a classic. You also feel really connected to the main protagonist because there's some instances where he talks to you as if you're right there with him. So it's really personal, it's really intimate. And then last book I read in that reading vlog is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. This book was the hardest book to rate in this month. I felt like I had lots of back and forths when I was trying to rate this book. You're following Peter and Ivan, who recently lost their dad. They have an age gap of like 10 years, and the both of them deals with grief differently. Peter is also a very successful lawyer, while Ivan is a very good chess player. Peter struggles a lot in his life. He has connections with 2 other women in his life. One is called Naomi, the other is called Sylvia. Ivan is also connected to a woman called Margaret, who you get the POV of in this book. And Margaret is 36 years old, way older than Ivan, but they have a relationship. This book was honestly pretty hard to read in the beginning, and I had a very hard time. There are 3 POVs, and each POV is very different in its writing style. Peter's POV are in short bursts of thoughts, very scattered, very all over the place, very random sometimes, while in Ivan's POV, it's a lot of rambling, lots of long paragraphs, long sentences of his thoughts and his feelings. And then in Margaret's POV, you get a little bit more of an emotional, sentimental, introspective type of thinking and the way she kind of understands society. I did enjoy that, but then Peter's POV was honestly so freaking difficult to understand, so I had a hard time in the beginning of the book. I also felt like it was very slow paced in the beginning, especially part 1. It was just very slow. I wasn't really invested in the storyline, but then the moment you get into part 2, things start picking up. Things start getting a little bit more tense. Relationships start getting all over the place, start interweaving with each other, and you start realizing that all of these characters are so flawed. They're so wrong. The way they think is so entirely selfish. But I think the reason why I had a hard time getting into the book and like realizing that it's really difficult to read is because a lot of these characters, they actually act in a way where lots of people in society acts that way. It felt like a wake-up call to me. It felt like this book was stabbing me in the back. You read on and you think that this person is very selfish, but then you realize that you do the same thing as this person. It's the type of book that makes you think, because the things that they go through, their thoughts, the way they feel, the way they act towards a certain person, and how they react, you will relate to one of these people. This book is honestly just really about sad people being sad, but then it makes you think and it makes you reflect. And so that's why I end up rating this a 4 stars, just because up until now I still think about Peter and Ivan's relationship and how it became so wrong and why it was never good until it became good. Intermezzo was a very thought-provoking book, and I don't think a lot of people would enjoy this. I also will not be recommending this to people. It's not the type of book I would recommend to people. I did enjoy Intermezzo, and I'll be forever thinking about this book. Last book I read in this month is Amid Clouds and Bones by Ella Field. This will also be in a reading vlog, but it's gonna be in a reading vlog that's gonna be uploaded like a long time later. So I'm gonna talk quickly about my feelings about this book, but I want to go in depth in that reading vlog. Amid Clouds and Bones is a standalone romantasy. It's on KU. Mildred is our FMC, and she is a human prince living in the human realm. She gets married off to Atakan, who is the Seelie prince, for an arrangement of like alliances and stuff. Mildred doesn't like Atakan, obviously. They met throughout their years of them when they were 12 until they're adults and getting married now. But then something big happens to Mildred one day, and she starts unraveling secrets and realizing that things are not what it seems. This book was really fun and entertaining, But I do admit that there's a lot of problems with like the world building and like the magic. Some things don't connect. Why do things happen the way it happens? And how did this even work? I love world building. I love it when a fantasy role explained very well. But this book, because it was a very short romantasy standalone, I understand why it's not fully explained, because you have to cover so much in so little space. I did like Mildred and Atticus' relationship. They have a very like love-hate relationship, and I thought the way they got together or the way they started really liking or being obsessed with each other was very cute and sweet. I wouldn't say it was so unpredictable because I did guess half of what happened, but I did have fun with this book. I would rate it 3 stars just because the world building was honestly not the best and it was kind of whack. But I love the romance, I love the spice, and I loved Atticus' character. So 3-star book. I recommend it if you guys want a very fun and easy and fast read, but not if you guys want like a very well-built fantasy world, which means I am officially done with this February wrap-up. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. I did love talking about all of these books. If y'all enjoyed, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel and watch out for the reading vlogs that I mentioned, or also check out the reading vlogs of all the books that I talked about. They're in the description box down below. Once again, hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!